What's up and welcome to my guitar channel. Let's write a Children of BODOM song. No one asked for it, I just wanted to do it. Here's a sneak peek at the final result. I'm going to go with my default amp sim of the amp knob Rev C by BODOM Digital and my guitar that is tuned to D standard because that is a very, very common tuning that is used by Children of BODOM. I'm going to set my tempo at about 160 BPM and then I'll check back in with you when I've got an idea. Thanks to the power of editing, my idea is already done. This is what I've got. There are a few things to keep in mind when you're attempting to write a Children of BODOM melody. Number one is we want to play something that's in a minor scale. It doesn't particularly matter if we're going to choose natural, harmonic, or melodic minor, or Phrygian or Locrian, or even blend between many of those within the one riff, melody, or idea, or whatever. Generally, these melodies will follow the rhythmic structure that's laid with the guitars and the bass underneath. For example, if the double kicks are playing consistent triplets underneath, then you can pretty much bet that the melody is going to be doing that exact rhythm as well. Number three is we want some harmonic movement, and number four is we're potentially going to arpeggiate something here. Point three, I think, warrants some further investigation though. What do I mean by harmonic movement? All that I mean by that is the melody moves through more than one chord. Static harmony is just one chord. A melody based off static harmony might sound something like this. Whereas if there's two chords, the melody might sound something like this. The difference being the first one is happy to sit on one chord all day, every day. Whereas the second one, it wants to move to the chord. If you're doing things right, then you can actually hear the second chord inside the melody itself. So let's throw on some rhythm guitars, bass, and drums and see how it sounds. What I did was put some pretty simple hits in following the chord progression that I laid out with my melodic guitar. With the left guitar, I chose to copy the melody exactly, but an octave lower. With the right guitar, I pretty much just grooved on the open E with a couple of little bits of ear candy. There are two main reasons why I had the two guitars doing separate things. One is so that I could actually glue the bass and the drums to what's going on in the guitars and the melody, and the other is to unbalance the listener. If both rhythm guitars are doing exactly the same thing, then it provides a really solid bass where the listener can focus on what should be focused on within the music. If they're doing different things, it attracts the listener's attention. And you just have to be aware that if you're going to attract attention, you're taking it from somewhere else. Alexi quite often had the rhythm guitars doing very similar but slightly different things. Adding in concepts like this makes your composition more interesting and more dynamic, but only if you're wanting to give it attention. If you've got a beautiful singer that you want to give all the attention, you really need the guitars to get out of the way of that. And if that's the case, then do less on the guitars. But right now we're doing a Children of BODOM song and there's no singing, so I'm going to do more. Let's move on to the verse riff. For this, I'm aiming to do something that is used pretty much everywhere through Children of BODOM music. Living Deadbeat, In Your Face, BODOM After Midnight, Every Time I Die, Damaged Beyond Repair, etc., etc. It's the idea of having a rhythmic element setting the foundation for a riff with some pretty bits that break it up. This is the idea that I came up with. Let's hear it with some drums and bass. Next, I want to move to a melodic idea to break things up. Something like Are You Dead Yet, Triple Corpse Hammer Blow, Follow the Reaper, or I don't know, pretty much any single Children of BODOM song that has a melodic guitar idea used in it. What I'm going to start with this time though is the rhythm guitars. Lots of melodies that Alexi wrote were based on the harmonic movement that's going on underneath them. So in this case, if I start with a melody, there's a chance that I'm actually going to pigeonhole my riff. Unless I'm really intentional and essentially pre-plan the harmonic movement that goes on underneath the melody, then there's a chance I'm going to end up with static or a single chord for my harmony, which can sound very cool, but it's not very Children of BODOM. Alexi loved using fourths in his riff. Listen to Better Razors to get a really good idea of him using it all the time, but it's also used in many other songs, Downfall, Undergrass and Clover, and heaps of other songs. The sound is when you go from like an E to an A, or a G to a C, or an A to a D, or you can do it in reverse. Basically, this is the intention that I'm going into this riff with. This is the sound that I want. So the main idea that I'm going with is That's pretty much my riff. But what I'm going to do is actually cycle it out. So instead of just playing that 4 times and that being my riff, I'm going to have kind of 2 different variations on it. Give me a minute to put that together with the drums and bass, and then I'll play you it in its whole. As you can hear, it's kind of 2 main variations and then 1 shift. The reason why I did this is because if you have the exact same riff going underneath, then it's kind of going to close your options for melodic writing once again. If you just leave it open, if you do different things, then it's going to allow your ear to more easily make different melodic choices. Now, all I have to do is put a melody over the top of it. I'm going to use my ear, but keep those guidelines that I set for the melody writing for Children of Bodom at the start of the video. Let's see what I come up with. Next idea I want is what I consider to function as a pre-chorus. In my eyes, a pre-chorus needs to provide movement, but it doesn't need to ask questions. So it needs to show us that we're about to step into a climax. I want to use the flat 6, flat 7, 1 chord progression, which sounds like this. It's really common in heaps of music because it sounds cool. Alexi loved it and used it in heaps of songs like Bed of Razors, In Your Face, 6 Pounder, etc, etc. All I'm saying is that I'm choosing to use it. So give me a minute to figure this out and then I'll play you what the result is. I chose to go with the halftime feel for the drums because it will help create some space in the build up to the chorus. It also relaxes our ears from the relentlessness that we've experienced so far, and naturally this allows us to breathe before we go back into the intensity of whatever the chorus happens to be. I chose to add this little melodic idea on the end because I thought it needed a little more space. So finally we're onto the chorus, and for this I wanted to take direct inspiration from Triple Corp's Hammer Blow. The reason why this is because essentially we've been riffing on the open D the whole time, and I wanted to just have something that breaks that up, something to juxtapose the rest of the song. The way that I'm approaching this one is I'm going to listen to Triple Corp's Hammer Blow chorus, I'm going to try and pick up the vibe, and then I'm going to forget about everything that I know. So I'm not going to be thinking about theory, I'm not going to be thinking about anything when I write this. It's just, what is the vibe of Triple Corp's Hammer Blow, and then how can I emulate that in my own way? So here's what I came up with. This riff is essentially this chord progression. But when I wrote that, I thought this is not doing enough. So instead of playing these chords, I chose to play the arpeggio. Essentially, I extrapolated that idea out by changing things around a bit, and I'll play you the full chorus in a minute. And Alexi would do this type of stuff all the time. Sometimes he would just play the chords. Sometimes he would play a melody. Sometimes he would have one guitar play the chords and one guitar play the melody. And sometimes he'd have both guitars harmonize each other. There are a million different things that you can do. All you need to do is think about how can you make this part more interesting, more exciting. And here's what I came up with. So in listening back to this whole track, I realized that I wasn't exactly happy with the pre-chorus. Here it is in context. So this is fine for a pre-chorus, but we're writing a Children of Bodom here. Melody is king. I don't have that much melody going on in that. So I worked on this a bit and came up with something that I think suits better. It's essentially the same thing, it's just one's far more melodic than the other, and I feel like Alexi would choose option B over option A. So that's it, but before we hear the song in its entirety, please note that I've left both versions of the pre-chorus one after the other. So it plays the first one, then it plays the second one, then it plays that little pre-chorus bit, and then the chorus. It will sound a little disjointed, but I want you to hear the kind of different ideas as they go through, and you can decide which one that you like better. If you've got any questions, if I didn't explain something clearly, if you're having trouble learning something, or you've got any requests, please leave them in the comments below, or contact me via email. Catch you next time for more stuff about music. Bye-bye.